Welcome to the Manuchehri podcast. Over the last 30 years, it has been my joy to assist humanity in aligning with their magnificence so they may heal, discover their natural gifts, and communicate with loved ones living on the other side. May you also experience delight while we dance in the powerful, intuitive world of energy. Let's get going. Welcome to Where Energy Meets the Divine. I'll be your host for maybe the next 40 minutes or so. Before I go to the phone lines, and again, thank you everyone for visiting energyintuitive.com or mariemanuchehri.com and for leaving a voicemail on my podcast page. You do get a free self-hypnosis meditation that we say is a thank you. And then of course you get a free reading, a little one from me. I love the questions because I think they help a lot of people, not just hopefully the people who call and leave their questions. But before we do that, before I go to the phone lines and we start listening to these voicemails, I want to continue our conversation from our last podcast, but a slightly different shift. So last week, I talked about how many people are going to start to wake up. You know, Neptune, this outer planet, very powerful. And just so everybody understands, I'm not an astrologer. I do love astrology. I don't even study it, but I'm highly intuitive. So there's certain things that I pick up about astrology that can be very helpful for me and sometimes helpful for others. So Neptune is this huge outer planet that I believe affects our belief system, and it affects our brain in unique ways, our emotions. It's going to be very watery. You know, Neptune is an intuitive planet, by the way, but it also can be deceptive, potentially, when Neptune is in Pisces, which it has been for the last 14 years. And now Neptune is wiggling its way out. I literally see this picture of a large koi pond, and there's a huge koi fish in there, and that's Neptune. And it's moving to the other side of the pond, and it's a slow mover, and it's wiggling its way through. And that's what's happening right now, because Neptune is going to land into Aries, which is the sign after Pisces. When we look at the 12 astrological signs, Pisces is the end of astrology and Aries is the beginning. So Pisces is death in one way of its description, and there are many ways to describe all of the zodiac signs. And Aries is birth, you know, the beginning. So Neptune is wiggling out of Pisces. And because it's so slow in its movement, so incredibly slow, it's really there. It's already there. It's just going to plop fully. So that means it's going to start partially moving into Aries very soon because at the end of March, it will be there. So a lot of people's perceptions are going to start changing. They've been kind of in this cloudy, although it could have been very intuitive for many people, you know, persuasion of Piscean energy. So people can be tricked easily. They could believe something that when Neptune moves into Aries, they're going to believe something completely different. And so that's why I believe that a lot of people are going to wake up to some of the changes that have happened in the world, that maybe they participated in those changes and they're not going to be as happy about it. And so a lot of people are going to be waking up, not just about political changes, but all kinds of changes. And one of the things that's going to need to happen is that those of us who already are, let's say, in a balanced perception about a particular topic that someone is now awakening to, we're going to have to help them. We're going to have to give them some advice. We're going to have to educate them. And I want you to know, because something like this just happened to me, I want you to know that you're going to have to be patient. And I'm sure many of you are a lot more patient than I am. I'm an Aries. I like things to move fast. And because I've had certain education about certain things all of my life, even through my family has always believed in teaching everything. Like my mother and father never taught myself or my siblings, there's 5 of us, that there was a Santa Claus, because my mother believed that would be lying to us, and she didn't want us to ever believe that we would lie to her. I did the same thing to my kids. I did not tell them there was a Santa Claus. I said, there was a Saint Nicholas. I'm just using this as an example. I promise it will be meaningful. I said, there was a Saint Nicholas who made toys for children and gave them, as gifts. And that's where this story originates from. But there's really not a Santa Claus. And then, of course, I had to tell my children, as my mother had to tell myself and my siblings, you can't tell other kids this because their parents want to have this lovely imaginary experience with them. So I've always been kind of a truth teller. I like knowledge. I love science. And so recently, I think I think a lot of people are waking up about all kinds of things. But someone wrote me through Instagram, sent me something that I won't talk about because it's really not necessary, about something political. And I made a different comment. And this person was surprised by my comment. And the comment had to do with women's health rights, with women's rights in general, but certainly health rights. And I was really surprised and quite frankly annoyed that I had to explain to another woman about fetal tissue and the uterus. And this woman is intelligent. She knew what I was talking about. But I don't think a lot of people, including this woman fully, understand the complexity of women's health. I don't even think the majority of women understand the complexity of their own health. We're going to blame that. And let's say we're just talking about the United States, but we have lots of countries in the world that women are not even less of a priority than than the United States, right? So there's not a lot of education going on about women's health worldwide. So we know that if women don't completely understand their own health care, then men absolutely do not understand women's health care. And I found myself, so this is through a social media app and we're writing back and forth, and I found myself really annoyed. And so I wanted to have this conversation because I want you to not be annoyed. I want you to be prepared that you're going to have to educate, share personal things, even if you think it's something that somebody should already know. That word should, right? You're going to have to take a deep breath, which I have not done, by the way. I have not done this. Take a deep breath and kind of sit back and feel honored that perhaps that something that you share is going to resonate with someone who could help them move into a healthier balance about healthcare. So I had to explain to this person who may have known and just forgot that abortion, which is really a medical procedure. I think we need to start talking in terms of truth. Like, we shouldn't even use the word pregnant and pregnancy, although those are scientific terms. What they really mean is that a person is growing a human being in their body. That's freaking complicated. It could be complicated for some women to get pregnant. It could be complicated for women to maintain a pregnancy. It could be complicated for their health. Pregnancy is so hard on the body. Growing a human being is so hard on the human body. I mean, it's incredibly hard. It moves organs. If someone's immune system is a little wobbly, they could get sick during a pregnancy, which could medically make them need to terminate that pregnancy, to end growing the human being, because it might kill the host or radically change their health system. And then, of course, we have, and I know I'm speaking to most of you that already understand these issues, but I'm telling you this is because I want you to probably do some more research, not just on this topic, but other topics. Like, I personally feel that people who don't understand the complexity of women's health issues or don't understand what a tariff is should be voting on those topics, or letting that be part of the platform of why they're voting on their misinformation, right? I think that should be a rule, but it's not. So now that more people are going to be waking up, not just about this, but even about spirituality, because some people find that topic new and some people are frightened by that topic, and you have a lot of information or knowledge about it or experiences, and you're going to need to do some teaching. So find out what area of these things, that the few topics that I'm talking about right now, irritate you, because you're going to need to calm down and take some deep breaths, do your own research, remind yourself of some facts, and be able to communicate calmly and lovingly to people who really are ready to change, ready to grow. Part of this conversation was that this person wasn't against the medical procedures that are necessary. Let's say when a woman is pregnant, wants to be pregnant, and her fetus dies in her body, and she unfortunately lives in one of the 13 states that bans abortion, even for medical important reasons, like a fetus, that means flesh is rotting in the uterus. And what happens when that happens, you get an infection. And when you get an infection, a systemic one, the chances of death are extremely high, which we've had numerous deaths since Roe versus Wade was overturned throughout the United States, numerous. Not all of them have even been reported and I mean, like, shared publicly. So as I was explaining, these interesting facts, I also had to share a story of what's happening in the world, what's happening to individuals, because this person had this assumption, some rhetoric, that there are a lot of women having repeat abortions and the state is paying for them. So if indeed that were true, that would be women in poverty, because if Medicare or Medicaid is paying for an abortion, then that's a person who's in poverty. We have more women in red states that are in poverty than in blue states. And part of that is because red states actually don't take advantage of federal funds to care for the people that live in their state. So they have less opportunities for education, less opportunities for healthcare, and many people get stuck in minimal paying jobs. And of course, still the hourly rate, the federal hourly rate is in poverty levels. So people who live in states where they're not cared for, even if their state gets federal funds, if they take them, they don't share them with the people who need them. I mean, this has been a reported concern that's been replayed over and over and over for decades in the United States. So yes, that there could be women in a state that's not taking care of them, who've had numerous pregnancies, and maybe they can't have another one. Like, their body can't do it anymore. You know what happens when you get pregnant? I mean, I've been pregnant 3 times. I've had 3 children. And it's so hard on the body. So organs shift and move into different places in your body to make room for the human being that you're growing. It takes up to 3 years for those organs to move back to their original position. I don't think anything goes back to original after you have a baby. You have to push that thing out of your body, or they have to cut it out, right? This thing that you grew, this human being that you're growing, it's a very complicated process. So it's really hard on mothers and people having babies, and maybe a person just can't have another one, and maybe they're in poverty, and so of course Medicare or Medicaid has to pay for it. So I think from that perspective, we just have to share, which I did, is we don't know what other people's situations are, and we can't judge that. That's not our job. We don't know. There are many things that people experience on earth that none of us have ever experienced and may never experience. So I think, that's a crucial argument. So I'm having this conversation with you today. Obviously, I'm still a little annoyed, especially when the person said, well, this can't be Marie because she misspelled a few words. Yeah, I misspelled a few words because I just got home from a delayed flight after having a lovely weekend getaway with my girlfriends, and went to a lovely spa and came home and was preparing to make a podcast and answering text messages about female rights, which as a woman, I'm become very annoyed, regardless of the gender, who doesn't understand the complications of women's healthcare, which should be paramount throughout the universes. Women's healthcare should be the number one top priority, not only in knowledge and education about what a woman experiences in her life, but her healthcare should be paramount. I mean, we are helping to reproduce the population of the planet. Men cannot grow fetuses in their body as of yet, right? So we should be front and center in terms of healthcare. We should be one of the most important people on the planet when it comes to healthcare and reproductive rights and all the things that go along with the complication of human development and growing human beings in the body. Okay, so overall, you're going to become patient because people are going to be waking up on all kinds of topics, not just this one that is a button pusher for a lot of people, but all kinds of topics. People are going to be curious, that they're going to have this awakening in their brain. They're going to go, I wonder about this. Maybe you've already thought about this. Maybe you already understand it. And maybe you too, like myself earlier, felt annoyed that someone else doesn't understand it. But I'm just going to ask you, as I'm going to be working with myself, to be gracious and patient and feel honored to perhaps teach. Maybe it won't, there is a possibility that people, even though they're curious, it could take them a while to adjust their thinking and their belief systems. And that's probably where the patience is going to come through. This is a poor analogy, but maybe years ago you were in a math class because one of the things the US doesn't do very well is it doesn't teach for the individual. People learn differently. And the US has this crazy belief that everybody learns the same and everyone should be taught at the same time, the same thing. Chronologically speaking, if you're 7, you learn this. If you're 8, you learn that. And if people learn ahead, they don't get all the accolades or support that they deserve. And people who might be a little bit slower to absorb that information don't get the help they need or the support they need. So it's a bizarre system. It's extremely unhealthy. That's also a completely interesting another topic. But I'm sure you can remember a class that you were in. Let's say it didn't have to be math. And maybe you needed a little bit more time. And hopefully you had a patient teacher who loved the topic and was impassioned by your growing, beautiful brain and gloriously led you down a stunning pathway of awareness so that you could gain the skills you needed to excel at the topic and begin to progress on that particular topic. So that's kind of what we're going to be called to do. And I think all walks of life and all kinds of people, there's just going to be so many, so much awakening. And of course, we have different layers of consciousness on Earth in terms of humanity, that there's all kinds of questions that are going to be asked. And so hopefully you won't be annoyed like I still kind of am. All right, I'm going to go ahead and go to the voicemails and do my very best to answer all of your stunning, lovely questions.
Hi, Marie. My name is Regina, and I'm coming at you from Ohio, here in the United States. Thank you very much for taking the time to do this for us. It really makes a big difference. My question to you is, I have these 2 fears, and I've had them my whole life, and I wanted to know if you could feel anything about them. My first fear is fear of money, and you had mentioned that. If I had to anyone call me about like a credit card and like, was this taken out of your credit card? I get scared to death. I don't even want to make the call, even though I know like why they're calling, they're checking in and making sure this particular purchase, whatever, is fine. But I freeze and I can't think. And the other one was I have a fear of just being open about things like this, like your podcast, like tell anybody in my family that, I'm really interested in tarot cards. I'd love to talk to a psychic and a medium. I'd love to take your classes. And I'm like, how do I break this to my husband? Like, oh, hey, I'm thinking about this without thinking that I'm crazy.
Aww.
And so why am I facing these fears? Like, is there something blocked in the chakras? I feel like I would love to heal, be a healer, a psychic, medium, anything in that realm. And I don't know what's holding me back. I don't know why I'm scared. And I don't know if there's any blockages that maybe you could see or any guidance you could give. There are 20,000 other questions that I'd love to ask you, but I think that's my top. All right. Thank you so much. I so appreciate you doing this. And everyone out there, this is immeasurably helpful, and we thank you. Take care.
Hi, Regina. You're welcome. I'm so glad it's helpful. It's fun for me too. So fear, remember, it's false information appearing real. That's what it means. It literally means that. False evidence is the correct breakup of that symbolic. It's really an ego-driven thing. Anytime we've experienced fear, it's the ego. But what you're experiencing, I'm going to just explain it slightly different for you, because I know what this feels like. I understand it. You're actually feeling a rumbling in the second chakra area, because the second chakra is all about joy. Fear is obviously the complete opposite of joy. It's also where your power lies for spirituality. It's also where wealth lies. So the second chakra governs key areas of the human world. And no other chakra does this, only the second, which is just below the belly button for women, at the belly button for those who identify as men, in that vicinity. And it affects reproductive organs, kidneys, adrenal glands, lower back, appendix, and the bladder. And career, wealth. So that means the M word for you, money. Intimate partnerships, close personal friends, and creativity. So it's covering three, because you were saying, I don't want my husband to think I'm crazy, and I'm telling you, but I tend to be extreme. I think people should be in incredible relationships, and I'm not saying anything negative about yours, but if your husband thinks that you're legitimately crazy because you tell him that you love tarot, it's probably not the right person for you. Just letting you know. And creativity, right? So I'll say this again: creativity, intimate partnerships, close personal friends, career, and wealth. And your second one is wealth. And then the third one was your friends. You want to be able to share with others, the things that you love and that makes you happy. Sometimes we won't know until we speak our truth, which is a vulnerable experience. To express one's truth is vulnerable. We don't know how other people are going to respond. And I remember a moment like yours, the one that you're having right now, and I see your second chakra shaking. So this is good. You're stepping into good, juicy energy. I'd been laying hands on patients in the hospital for probably several months, maybe 4 months, let's say. And I was in a patient's room, and I started to hear things even before I laid hands on patients. I was having mounting psychic experiences every day. And I was very lucky. My nurse supervisor supported me and was the one who encouraged me to lay hands on patients. And so I had my hands on a patient, and I had this full vision in my brain. This man was, I think at the time, in his 80s. I was seeing a picture of like the 1920s. And I knew this little boy that I saw running down the street in knickers and this cute little jacket, who was maybe 7 or 8 years old. I knew it was the man was the little boy, like when he was a child. And I could see all these cars, that were popular at that time period. And I was told the word trauma, that he had a trauma. And I had already begun to hear stories and see images when I laid hands on my patients, but I had yet to talk to them about it. I was afraid. I mean, when I walked in a patient's room to lay hands on them, not do my normal nursing duties, I shut the door really tight so that that I would know before someone walked in and said, "Hey, what are you doing?" Which never happened, by the way. Nobody said that to me. 3 physicians actually wrote orders for me to lay hands on their patients when word got out about what I was doing and how it was having a positive effect on people. So I was, again, very supportive, but I was so nervous. The reason what makes us nervous or feel this fear is we're afraid of our power. That's really what all human beings are. They're not afraid of people thinking that you're crazy, or they're not going to like you anymore, or that you're going to be broke or homeless. I know you didn't put that in there, but a lot of people have that fear that they're going to run out of money and live on the streets. So they have all these fears, but these fears are not the real fear. Those are mind-made fears. They're created by your mind from overthinking, analyzing, and processing. Your real fears, you're terrified of your magnificence. So you're holding yourself back. I would encourage you, because the first time, and that was the moment when I was in that hospital bed and I see, a beautiful scene in full living color from the 1920s. I said to the patient's wife, well, I said it to the patient first, but he just looked at me like I had no idea what I was talking about. I said to him, "Have you ever experienced a trauma, especially when you were a child?" And he goes, No. His wife is in the corner, sitting in a chair, looking at me with some tears running down her eyes. And I just look at her. I didn't ask her. I looked at her and she goes, "He did. His father had a massive stroke when he was around 5 years old. He was the oldest child, the only male of the family. And his father was paralyzed, couldn't do anything, couldn't work, couldn't take care of the family. And he ultimately died within a year or two. And the now grown man in the hospital had to take over his father's he had to be the man of the house because that's how it was at that time, at least in the United States, that young children had to take over adult responsibilities many times in households when dire events occurred. So it wasn't until that moment, and of course I would have never known that I was seeing something accurate that pertained to this person who had a severe neurological issue that went away for months. I think his daughter told me 6 months before it started to creep back because he wouldn't do any of the homework I recommended. I'm a big proponent of homework. And I never laid hands on him again. He left the hospital, and so I never saw him again. And his daughter was she worked in the hospital. So that's how I got some feedback about how he improved after that session. So if I hadn't finally said what I was seeing, I wouldn't have known how accurate I was, how important it was, how it helped this man to become pain-free for a long period of time and have his pain reduce, because that was his neurological issue. He had uncontractable pain in his body that medication wasn't helping. It was not a good thing. So there's a whole bunch of stuff that you don't know. You're on the precipice. I know I'm spending a lot of time answering this question, but it's a really good one. You're on the precipice of finding out a lot about yourself and discovering your own natural gifts and talents. And you're going to have to start speaking about it. You're going to have to get vulnerable. Vulnerability is authentic power, right? That's what creates amazing relationships, is when you can be vulnerable with another human being, and that human being is kind and loving and unconditional with you, right? But you won't know that unless you're vulnerable. You don't know. And then the money thing. I've talked about this a lot on my podcast. You have to think of something else besides wealth every single time you're going to engage with wealth. So what I would heard, so that you understand where this originated from, is your parents, when they were young, probably were worried about money. People used to think, and I'm not blaming your parents, by the way, this is just a normal thing. People used to think that kids really didn't understand things, just like people don't think that dogs understand what's going on. They do. I don't know why people don't talk to their dogs or their cats. They should all day long, because they're intelligent creatures and they're part of the family. So a lot of adults didn't understand that their children are creating their beliefs from the moment they are born until 5 years of age. That's when the majority of the belief systems are created. That's why people don't remember why they have a fear about something, they're uncomfortable about something, because it could have easily been created during that time period of belief. And usually young people are the ones having kids, and they're buying maybe their first house or their first car or their first minivan. Sorry about that. Or, somebody's staying home with the kids and now they're down to one income. So there's a lot of stress, financial stress, typically on young families. And they talk about it in front of their children. They even may argue about it in front of their children. And this is what can create a lot of fear for people as they grow up, because they heard something at a young age that created a belief system. Ooh, money's scary. It's a problem. People fight about it. Ugh. So for you, this may sound really funny, but before you put your password into a computer to access financial funds, before you grab a debit card, a credit card, a checkbook, grab financial mail, I want you to think of, it's like an animation of a cute little frog sitting on a lily pad. He's got a hat on for some reason. And then he's going to hop on different lily pads, but it's animated. It's kind of cartoonish. I want you to think of that. I want you to feel that energy. And I want you to do this for the rest of your life, because creating wealth is about having a positive relationship with the vibration of wealth. And people cannot think negatively about it and create a positive frequency with it. That's how wealth comes into people's lives, because they have a positive vibration with it. It won't even matter what happens in the world. People who have a positive vibration with wealth will always be financially cared for. It's just a proven quantum reality. This is just proven scientific reality. Okay, that was great. Great questions. Thank you.
Hi, Marie. This is Nicole from Beaverton, Oregon. I'm calling into your voicemail system today because I have been struggling with Raynaud's syndrome, cold blue hands and
Yeah.
cold feet, for 5 years now. And darn it if I can't get this figured out.
Mm.
So, as far as I can tell, there are at least 4 different routes that I could be taking to try and move the needle and progress and to get some relief on this. There's the school of thought out there that it's hormone related, estrogen dominance, and I could take iodine and some natural progesterone, and but also that I should probably really revamp my nutrition because some foods act like estrogens in the body. Then there's another school of thought which says this is the liver being overtaxed, and that also change my nutrition, but with that in mind. So severely restrict any oils or anything that requires a lot of detoxing or that the liver might be doing and doesn't have the energy for anymore. So that's a big nutrition regimen change for me if I went that route. I have done some Chinese medicine herbs, and I think from learning from your previous podcasts, the energetic route would be to learn how to receive,
Yes.
which I thought I was doing better at, but maybe I'm not.
Yeah.
So all of these things just combine to make me feel overwhelmed, and maybe I haven't been as focused on any one thing because I feel like I'm trying all of them at the same time and then I get burnt out.
Mm-hmm.
So my question for you is, could you please do a scan of my body and help point me in the direction that would be most effective for healing my Raynaud's?
Mm-hmm.
I would love to know if it's more physiological or if it's more energetic. I would love to know some tips that you can see on the big ticket items, like the 1 or 2 things that if I was really dedicated on and consistent with, that would make the biggest impact. That would be great. I would really appreciate it. I've learned so much from you,
Great.
and I'm really hopeful that you can help me again with this. All right. Take care. Bye.
Thank you, Nicole, and it's my pleasure to help you. First and foremost, all disease or some sort of imbalance of health in the body is energetic first. Does it start off physical first? Energy. So that means the energy has a problem. It's not functioning or flowing the way it's supposed to. Now, it doesn't mean that everybody who has an energy misflow or a problem occurring in their body is going to get a health issue. All issues in our life, whether it's a divorce, a bankruptcy, a health issue, I'm trying to think of what other issues are there. These are all here to help us awaken, to grow, to expand, to get curious. Look at all the things you've gotten curious about already, right? So just know that when a health issue comes into the body, energy has to have been problematic first. Even if someone's in a car accident and they have a whiplash, injury, their neck was depleted significantly of energy. That's why they injured their neck. Otherwise, if they had a depleted energy in their lower back, they would have injured their lower back. So always it's energetic first. That's why energy medicine can be extremely effective in helping people to heal, because we help rebuild their energy. And in my case, I help people to sustain it. And my biggest part of my job is helping people to change their perceptions. Besides moving energy, it's like a 2-part job. Move energy, start to get the flow of energy in their body, and change their perception so they can continue that flow of energy into their body, because they have to change their belief system. They have to. So Raynaud's, for people who don't know, it's a form of arthritis. I think it's a form of rheumatoid arthritis, actually, but it makes you very, very cold. Energetically speaking, it comes from the heart chakra. So the heart chakra circulates all the blood in the body. That's what it does. And it governs from the tips of your fingers to your elbows. So it governs breast tissue, lungs, the heart muscle, the upper back, and then the elbow to the fingertips. And a lot of people with Raynaud's have it in their fingers, but they can have it in their toes too. The first chakra governs blood and all of its properties, but the fourth chakra moves all the blood in the body. So it is considered a fourth chakra illness. And this is for me. I'm a self-taught healer. I taught myself in the hospital, reading people's charts and then reading their energy. So So this is about your heart chakra, like I said, and the heart chakra is it's part of its job is to receive. And I would say you're a mild to mediocre receiver. And I'm sure you have improved on this. When people tell me this, and believe me, most people do, because they've heard about it, whatever I'm asking them to do, most people have. And so, of course, you've done work on it. I believe you, but a lot has to change, in my opinion. I don't think this is about estrogen at all, except that it's probably from depleted low estrogen. So this is not about low estrogen at all, in my opinion, at all. I think it's always good not to eat refined sugar. Overall, you have a pretty good, healthy diet from what I can see. So I don't think you have to go off the rails about diet, but I don't think people who have health issues or want to get healthier should eat refined sugar. I just think that should just be well-known information across the globe. Right? Like it's poison. It's not good for us. And so if we have a health issue, do not eat refined sugar and don't eat unhealthy oils like fried food, like French fries when people have a health issue. Not a great idea. Not a great idea. So this is about you receiving love. And I think your dad's crossed because he's here. I'm going to be talking to another father later as well. The dads are piling up over here. And he says, it's very sweet. And I've heard a little bit about what he's said before from other people who identify as male energy who lived on Earth, that he wish he had been more nurturing to you. And this is what he tells me. And I can feel it in the chest area. So sometimes some men, fathers, are very loving to their kids when they're female children in particular, let's say, as an example, when they're young. But as girls start to develop breasts and grow hair on their labia and under their arms, they may pull back because they want to respect their daughter. They also don't want to look at her because they don't want to give some weird vibe. It's kind of a Catholic thing. We can say religious, but it's a Catholic guilt thing. Like, oh, I got to be a good man. And so they pull back and they detach from their female children and they don't hug them as much or kiss them as much or because they don't want to give off some weird vibe, even though that's not even close to the type of person they are. I mean, when we hug and love people, if they're young, they're going to grow body parts and their body parts are going to get bigger. Their penises will get bigger. Their chest will get bigger for girls. Women menstruate, the majority of them. So, I mean, all these things are going to happen. Men and women are going to grow hair underneath in their axillary, in their armpits. So that's part of what started you from not letting people in. This is about vulnerability. Like you need to be vulnerable. And I know this is going to sound foreign, this vulnerability part, because people who could become fiercely independent can obviously take care of themselves and don't need anyone. They don't understand vulnerability because they haven't even been vulnerable to themselves. Even to themselves. I remember this one time, I probably used this example before, while I was married to my children's dad. I all of a sudden realized that the only music we pretty much listened to quite a bit was only Middle Eastern music. And honestly, I liked it for quite a long time. But after a while, I'm like, I don't want to just listen to only Middle Eastern music. But I didn't know that about myself. I hadn't asked myself personal questions like, what is your favorite music? If somebody asked me that, I wouldn't even know. I'd probably just say all of them, which is not the truth. People have preferences. So I finally went to a music festival where they had different bands on different stages and sat in front of them. I asked my then husband if he would come with me, and he didn't want to because he liked that I agreed to like all the things that he liked and wanted to do. He did not want to share my preferences in his life. That was not a desire of his. So I went by myself and, stood in front of these stages for 2 days. I went back the second day and did it again and realized my favorite music is really jazz. I mean, I love R&B. I definitely was a disco queen, but I love jazz. Love it. And the other two as well. So So vulnerability means you got to figure out who you are, what you want, what makes you happy, what doesn't. And this is not a mental thing. This is an emotional thing. And emotions are calm, they're compassionate, and a little bit surprising. Like I was surprised, like, oh, I really don't need to listen to Middle Eastern music for a while. I've listened to it for decades. Lovely. It's not my cup of tea right now. So that's where the self-discovery is, because you can't become vulnerable and share your likes and your dislikes with others if you don't know what they are. And I don't believe you do. Otherwise, you would be receiving like crazy, because you're a hard worker. You follow instructions, you do your homework. You're great at it. Just imagine twice a day, millions of hummingbirds flying into your back, not through your body, just into the upper back and moving in your body. That's an aspect of receptivity. And start questioning. Maybe it's not music. That was just my analogy. It could be something else. Let people get to know you. Share who you are. Share that you don't know who you are. That's vulnerable. And then we can get this Raynaud to go away. And also serapeptase could be extremely helpful. It's a prophylactic digestive enzyme that breaks up proteins, and it has a tendency to help people with joint pain. It also helps with cardiac function, which helps the heart chakra. It's contraindicated for anyone who takes blood thinners. And of course, if anyone's on any prescription medication, please ask your doctors before you take herbs or supplements. And if you don't know anything about herbs and supplements, ask a professional, because they are medicine. They just work differently. Okay, another great question. Love these questions.
Marie, can you please let me know if you're willing to answer most of my questions about your NDE? Because I'm a fan and also a big, huge listener. And yeah, I got a lot of questions to ask.
Okay. So this is Carl, who asked, if you couldn't hear the question very well, he asked about my NDE, which is a near-death experience, which I have never had. I've never had a near-death experience, just so everybody knows. I just came upon my awareness and my consciousness naturally while working in a hospital as an oncology nurse. So nothing to report, Carl, I think I'm saying your name correctly, about that. Sorry. So sorry.
Hi, Marie. My name is Katie. I'm calling from New Hampshire. I had a hysterectomy in 2020 for stage 4 endometriosis and removal of post-hysterectomy endometriosis in 2023. And then earlier this year, I was diagnosed with Sjogren's disease. So it was at that time that I started taking a different approach to my health after years of living in extreme and chronic pain. I started my spiritual journey, and I found out through human design that I'm actually quite highly intuitive. I feel since I started this journey that I vibrate higher, I'm lighter and brighter. I also started acupuncture and Chinese medical treatment for my endometriosis and Sjogren's at this time. And I'm completely pain-free. I have what I feel like is probably a 95% recovery of my symptoms. I started meditating, and I've been able to connect with my spirit guides, especially my grandfather, who now gives me signs everywhere, through birdsong, through rainbows that float in the sky, hearts in nature everywhere. And my question is, I'm being pulled to shift my career to one of greater service. I really see myself in the coaching industry and mentorship, but I have a very comfortable 6-figure job. It supports my family. I'm the breadwinner in that aspect. But I do have this real pull. It's waking me up at night. It's putting people in trainings in front of me to make this change, including your podcast. So I'm wondering if you are getting anything through from my guides, especially my grandfather that seems to communicate with me the most, that solidifies if I should take this leap financially, really, to make this happen? Will it pay off? So I'm looking for something that says, yes, you're meant for something different, or no, not right now. Continue on your spiritual journey, and there will be something else for you in the pipeline. So if you could give me some clarity on that, that would be wonderful. Thank you so, so much, and take good care.
Thank you, Katie, and congratulations on healing. I'm very proud of you. I think when people can heal themselves and heal themselves well, if they love the energy world or the coaching world, the intuitive world, however you want to describe it, of course they can help other people, because helping others, especially complete strangers, is much easier than healing oneself or even family members or friends. It's a lot more complicated because we're emotionally connected and you have to detach. There has to be a detachment. I loved your question, but I'm going to answer it differently than you think. Why wouldn't you make a 6-figure income as a coach or whatever you determine that you are? I wouldn't put a label on it right now. You don't know yet. You don't know what gifts and talents you're going to bring to the table. And most importantly, besides this odd question you had that you didn't phrase it this way, but basically you did. I'm not going to be a 6-figure incomer. That's not true. Why would you think that? That's ridiculous. Of course, you should be. You should be. So regardless of what you do, regardless. So that's number one. You need to change your perception about what I guess some people would call the creative fields or the healing fields. And I told this story recently to my girlfriends. Like, we were away, right? We went to Palm Springs, went to a spa. We had a great time. And we were talking about all my girlfriends are successful and, lovely, smart, amazing women. And I was talking about this one time I was on a date and I was dating someone, and I think it was our second or third date, and he knew what I did for a living. He worked in cybersecurity. And he said to me that he had some concerns about us dating because there was this financial disparity between our jobs. And I said, oh, really? What? Because I'm intuitive. I already knew how much he made. I didn't need him to tell me, And he said, I just, clearly you make, your income is much less. And, I just think it's kind of awkward. I can't remember all the words he used, but he basically said, that I made less than him, and that was bothering him. He was concerned about dating further because there was this disparity because I was such a low income maker. And I said to him, I go, well, I'm pretty sure I make more money than you. And he kind of sat back for a second, like he was surprised by what I said. And then I said, oh no, I'm confident I currently am creating more wealth than what you're creating. He never said a word to me about it. Never. He never said, hey, good for you. Great job. So you need to get rid of this weird, very strange perception you have about what someone's job title is and what their financial potential is. You need to get rid of that because that's BS. And I've said this to another woman who said something like this. And a lot of women enter the metaphysical world. I think it's kind of a sexist comment, honestly, quite frankly. I know that's not your intention, but I do. So that's number one. And the other thing you said, I know it sounds good that you're being pulled to help with the greater good. Those weren't your exact words. I'm paraphrasing. I'm not disagreeing with you, but my guides pulled me into energy medicine because it brought me outstanding joy and fulfillment. When people do things in the world, whether it's love another human being, cook certain bread, have a career, do things for their body that brings them outstanding joy, it will always be successful. So I don't like when people say, I want to do this because it helps humanity. I think when people do things that bring them joy, it will always help humanity, always. But you should do it for your own happiness. That's where everyone's gifts are. That's where their talents are. That's where the universe, and I'm sure that is why they're pulling you there. You just have translated it, from my perception, inaccurately, that you have to do this because it's for the greater good. It will be for the greater good, and you'll be very good at it. and I think you should do it, but you need to tweak your mental perspective. You want to do this for your own fulfillment. You want your gifts to come through. And when people are doing what's highly fulfilling for them, they step into their natural magnificence. And everyone is naturally gifted and talented. Everyone. Very few people exhibit those abilities as of now, more so than ever on Earth, by the way, ever. But still, not enough. So sorry for being a little harsh. Sometimes the universe pushes me to be harsh because that person needs to hear it that way. Not in what I'm about to say is not in your case, or they have a tremendous amount of resistance and they're so far away from understanding, which is not you, that the universe is pushing me because they're going to remember the conversation. Even if they didn't like it, even if they hated the conversation, they're going to remember it, and it's going to gnaw at them until they start to look at it differently. So welcome to the coaching world, or whatever it is that you determine that you do in the world that brings you joy and abundance. Thank you everyone for listening. I wish you many, many joyful blessings. Bye-bye for now.